So anyway, so on the ship we had little lips around the edges of all the tables to keep our plates from sliding off when we were, sitting down at dinner in rough weather. But a trick I learned out there was you take a wet paper towel and put it on the table first, and then put your plate on there, and then your plate won't move near as much as you're eating, so you don't have to chase your dinner all over the place. So anyway, so this works really good for these. Now, for working up one of these quarters, I have a dirty board and I have a clean board. As the meat comes in from the shop, there will be bits of hair. There's a couple of them right there. And the wet towels work great for taking those pieces of hair off of your fingers. So anyway, everything that's on this dirty board still might have hair and such on it. Once it goes from this board to this board, it's considered clean, and then that keeps your meat nice and easy. But anyway, so I like to start with the top of the shoulder here. There's a ridge right here in the scapula. Just cut along that ridge straight down, and then turn your blade sideways and cut along the face of the scapula, the flat part. And I guess this would be a good time to say how I like a good boning knife to be built. I like a flexible boning knife, not quite as flexible as, say, a fillet knife, because I'm not trying to cut around fish bones. Just cut straight down through all that, and off it comes. Now I know this part right here is clean of hair because it came out of the inside of the bone. So I can put it down like this, and anything on the top, we can just clean it off. Everything's sticking today. Trim it up, make it look nice. And that right there is one of your shoulder roasts. This here is the other shoulder roast. You can use this stuff for making tips over rice or stew meat.
You want to tell them what the two bowls are for?
Oh, the two bowls. The silver bowl is for scraps for a friend of mine that likes to cook him up for his dogs. My wife doesn't particularly care for me feeding the dogs deer meat. And the pink bowl, that one is for burger. So right here, what we're going to do, we got this big old chunk of fat here. So we're just going to come in, we're just basically using our knife to separate. That's nice and clean. Then we've got our arm roast right here, which I like this roast for throwing in the crock pot. One of those in a hurry type dinners. Pull it out of the freezer, toss it into the crock pot in the morning with some water, maybe a little bit of wine, and then that night when you get home from work, toss in some vegetables, and half an hour to an hour later, depending upon your crock pot, you've got dinner ready. So now that's clean, we'll roll it over, get rid of some of this fat tendons. There's our arm roast.
Want to show them what the whole bone looks like at this point?
That's there's your scapula, the front of it. This portion right here and the part on the back of the shoulder, I usually use that for burger. I suppose you could cut it up into stew meat. Just about everybody works up a deer, an antelope, or an elk a little bit differently. tell you the truth, I don't really think there's any wrong way to do it, as long as you get it worked up, get it into the freezer, and it's not chock full of hair and pine needles and whatever else. So we're just taking the little hairs off. That'll go into the burger bowl. This part of the scapula right here, the scapula will be flat underneath this, so this is where a real nice, thin, flexible boning knife really helps. See how it just runs right up alongside that bone. And then you can come back in and take off any stuff that you missed when you were making your big cuts. Now the shanks. I used to grind these up into burger, or if I was in a hurry, frankly, I wouldn't even mess with them. But then my buddy Dave, he taught me a really good recipe for these. That has to do with a slow cooker. The shanks have got all the tendons and nastiness in there that you really have to clean out if you're going to grind them for burger. But with his recipe, you don't have to. You take the shank either right out of the freezer, frozen, or you can thaw it out. I really can't tell it makes much difference. And you put the shank in a crock pot with a cup of water and a cup of wine. Put it on low and cook it for a day and a half. And all that time at temperature like that, it'll break down all the connective tissue and turn into basically jelly. And then a couple hours before you're ready to have dinner, you can go ahead and add potatoes, carrots, celery, onions, whatever you like. And it turns a very tough piece of meat into actually a really nice dinner. Take and clean off any extra hairs. And we'll set that off to the side. And that's pretty much how you work up a shoulder. You can come back in and get the little pieces that you missed for burger, or for if you're into jerky making, you can make either jerky or biltong out of it, which I guess is just a thicker version of jerky. But that's how you work up a front shoulder. Now we'll go ahead and show you how to wrap these, or just wrap one of them, because wrapping all of them is about the same. And then we'll go do the next quarter. So we'll take this arm roast and we'll come around here. I like to do a double wrap. First, wrap it in saran wrap, fold it over, and then fold it under, trying to squeeze all the air out of it. And I forgot my tape. Wrap it up like so. And if I had my tape, which I'll go grab some, you put a strip of tape across here, and then tuck the corners in really good, and then lift up pretty hard on this, and fold it over. Turn it around, tuck the corners in, lift up pretty hard. When you're lifting up pretty hard, you're squeezing any air that could be in there out. wrapping it over, putting a strip of tape over here, and then labeling it. I usually label, since there's several hunters in my household, I will label this 2014 Joe Deere left or right arm roast, whichever it was. And that's about all there is to it. So we'll go ahead and shut this video off, and then we'll go back out and we'll take the back strap out, the neck roast, and then I won't show you all that on the other side of the deer, and then we'll come back and get the hindquarters.